everyone. This is the David Goodman Reality and Truth Show. My name is Vanita Lambert. I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. I have two very special guests with me today. We have Reverend Daniel Aaron Cohen, right here to my right in the middle. And then we have Reverend John Fritz Carrier. And they're going to be telling us a little bit about what they do in the Overcomer Hours and so on. But before I get into my show with them, I just want to mention to everybody out there, because we're in a COVID era, I always have to mention something because it's such a big part of our lives. Everything we do, we need to know, are we vaccinated? I ask everybody, are you vaccinated? Do you need to have on a mask to go into the gym? How it's affecting us right now. And what I am seeing is that I want everyone to do what they can to crush this virus. Whether it's take a vaccine, wear a mask, because what's happening now is that when the virus first started, it affected all of the boomers, all of the older people. And so now we're all vaccinated. I'm a boomer, so I'm vaccinated. But now what's happening, it's affecting the children. 250,000 kids contracted this virus in a 7-day period.
Wow.
So, and these kids are ineligible for the vaccine. So, of course, it is your choice to do what you choose to do. But I just want to mention, what are we going to do to protect our kids? How can we protect our kids? If they can't protect themselves, it's the parents, the adults' responsibility to do what we can do to protect them. And I just want to put that out there. Do your job to crush COVID. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. And now we'll get back to our ministers here. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
You are very welcome. And I'm going to start with you, Mr. John John.
Oh, that's fine. I wasn't born with that name.
Oh, no. Well, I wasn't born with the name Lambert, but that is my name. And I like to respect the cloth, respect the title. You're doing the work of God, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. So how did you guys, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you guys all got started in, what is it called? The Overcomers?
The Overcomer Hour.
The Overcomer Hour. Tell us about what that is.
Oh, since you asked a question about my background, so I would like to say, that I am currently the interim pastor at the First Baptist Church of Norwich here in Connecticut. A great church. I'm very excited to be associated with such a great church that has been around for more than 200 years.
Wow.
In that community. I came to see myself as a bicultural person because I've worked, studied, and of course I spent significant amount of time in 2 different countries, this country and Haiti in the Caribbean. So because of that, I came to see myself as a bicultural person. You may have heard the expression, the word in-betweenness. It means that you feel like you're in between 2 countries or in between 2 things. So I have that type of in-betweenness in my background, in the sense that when I'm here, when people hear my beautiful Caribbean accent, they ask me, where are you from? But when I go to the Caribbean, the people see me as an American. So you feel like you're in between, on the margins of both places. But one thing that's good about it is it allows me to understand cultures and subcultures very well. So it makes it easier for me to speak about different people because I do understand cultures very well and subcultures very well. So that's part of my background. So, and of course I don't want to talk about education too much, but I have a Master of Divinity from Yale University. I also have an MBA from Southern Illinois University and an MA from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. Education is important, but I believe that though we're more educated today, but we seem to have less wisdom. So wisdom for me is more important than education. And I used to be a banker. I used to work for the largest bank in this country at some point in my life.
Who's the
I don't want
largest
to
bank?
name that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
We have a
I'm
disclaimer. There's nothing they can do.
I'm gonna say it was J.P. Morgan Chase.
Oh, okay.
and of course, in my past life, I used to teach finance in a college, and of course now I became a pastor like a number of years ago. I don't remember exactly when. So I'm happy and excited to be a pastor. I'm happy and excited to serve God, and I'm happy and excited to serve the people as the pastor of a congregation.
Well, thank you. We're happy to have all that information. And what about you, Reverend Cohen?
I'm just a humble servant of the Lord.
Okay, well, a little bit about your background. How did you get started? You were born a reverend. You just told me that, right? So what happened before that?
Well, I was actually raised Jewish, but my parents didn't believe in God. And then I had a epiphany when I was in college where I came to realize that I was a soul in a spirit in a body, and that God existed. And then I studied Buddhism for a while, and I was a Buddhist. And then in '93, I went to a church, and I was interested in the woman I was going to church with. And, I noticed we did everything at the same time. We read at the same time, we sang at the same time. So at the end, when the pastor said, all right, everybody who's, if you felt anything special, raise your hand. And that was kind of a unique way of giving the altar call, because usually they say, and I say, if you want to accept Jesus, raise your hand. Anyway, he said if anyone's felt anything special, and I was feeling tingly all over my body. So I raised my hand, but I had my head down, and I thought everybody had their hand raised. And the next thing I know is this booming voice saying, young man, and I'm like, uh-oh, what'd I get into? And he called me up, and I was like, so gung-ho, I was like, I repeated after him and accepted Christ, and inside I'm thinking, they pumped something through the vent that made me high, and that's how come I'm feeling this stuff. Of course, that didn't make sense because, it was only me. So it was the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
And that was my introduction to the church. And then that was in '93. And then I became a Christian. And then in '96, I went to a church that was an African American church. And I expected, I was trying to get in good with the pastor because I was writing a book, and he invited me to a Bible study, and I expected to see a bunch of old men sitting around a table. And instead, I come in, and the music is blaring, and the woman is yelling, yes, Lord. Oh. And I'm like, whoa.
You were in a Baptist church.
Yeah. Well, even more towards the Pentecostal side.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, blown away by the Spirit. So I've sort of been in the black church for a long time, but I also preach at white churches as well.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that. So one thing I do know is that, number one, you didn't know what you were doing. And women can be very persuasive. I think the tingly things you were feeling probably had nothing to do with it.
This is a good one.
I'm just guessing. I could be wrong, but I'm just guessing. So we all have a connection. My father was a pastor of 2 churches. My brother was recently ordained, I want to say within the last 5 years. But unlike, I'm telling my brother's story real quick, and then I'll let you guys talk about the Overcomer Hour. I don't want to take up too much time. We were brought up on the east side of Bridgeport. He dropped out of school in high school. He became a businessman. I forged his birth certificate at the time so he could get a job and help my mom, which was a single mom with 7 kids. The education we did not have. He became a successful businessman, owner-operator of the 18-wheeler. And then one day, he was telling me this story that, they know a lot of truckers forge their birth certificates to get jobs back in the day or whatever. They have the opportunity to come clean. And so he, straightened out his license, his birth certificate and everything. He's really my younger brother, but I forged it to be my older brother. He became ordained he's a minister of a church in Florida, right near Jacksonville. And it just kind of, exemplifies, it shows that when you read the Bible, like the Bible was written by all these different people from all different walks of life, like your education is just phenomenal. And my brother finished in the 9th grade, but you're still ordained ministers. I think that's just incredible.
Absolutely.
I think that's just incredible.
Yeah, only God can do that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and look at the people that wrote the Bible. They
Yeah.
weren't all educated.
Not at all.
Yeah,
Because-
so that's what I
yeah.
mean. They're from all different walks of life, and I'm from a divorced family. So my father did his thing in Alabama, and we were here in Connecticut. But it's just amazing how the outcome is. I just
Absolutely.
God is good. God is so good. I studied with the Jehovah Witness. I don't belong to a church. I church hop. I go to a bunch of different churches, and I'm not going to go down that road because, I don't want to take up too much time. I want you guys to tell us about the Overcomer Hours.
Well, the Overcomer Hour is an online platform that aims at helping people deal with challenges in their lives. We do it through prayer, reflections, music, and interviews, conversations with special people, and conversations with the participants. So it started last year
Okay.
at the beginning of the pandemic. You remember, like when the pandemic started, when we were aware of the pandemic in March of 2020, and everything started being closed. So no one knew what was happening. No one knew what to do. We didn't have a playbook for it. So I decided to think about what can be done to help out in this case. I was like, okay, I'm a pastor, so should I encourage people to put a church service on Facebook? Is it helpful? And I was like, this may not be too helpful because a lot of people will be doing this, and I'm not against it. But I thought, okay, let's come up with something that's different, that can be more helpful. That's a conversation between the church, religion, and medicine, science, the arts, and music, and prayer. So, and I thought, my good friend Daniel is doing some groundbreaking research in humility, and he's about to publish a book in humility. And I was like, but we are called to be humble in this time of challenge because we have a pandemic. People are dying. We don't know what's happening. So this is a time when people are being called to be humble. And I have another good friend whose name is Vicky Maricandi. She is a singer, wonderful singer, by the way. You should invite her to this show because she's
brought her
amazing,
with you.
amazing singer. So her ministry is based on grieving. So her songs came out of grieving times she had in her lives. So I was like, we are grieving as well because we're losing everything during the pandemic. So we got together and started thinking about what we have to do. And we came up with the idea of having something called the Overcomer Hour, where we would offer reflections. Daniel will offer reflection on humility. That's his research. That's the book he just published. And I would offer a reflection based on my experience as a pastor / former banker / former college administrator. And Vicky would be singing. And we would invite somebody to speak about a specific topic. And then at the end, we would open the mic for all our participants who are willing to do so, to talk about whatever they had on their mind. So, and it started well in May of 2020. It has been very successful. We had a lot of interviews. We had a lot of participants so far. And we've met with people like brain surgeons, chief surgeon from a hospital, dean at Yale, dean of medicine at UConn, Wall Street executives, business owners, musicians. All type of people have come to the platform to speak about what they think is going on in their life, and to encourage people to live well, to encourage people to at least to feel better at this during this type of challenge.
Oh, yeah. Communication is the key to success in anything. And what you guys were doing was so great and so needed because everybody was shut off from everybody. I work in the senior market, and I cannot begin to tell you how many people experienced anxiety from being alone and just shut off from the world. And so what I used to do is call my clients and just talk to them to see how they're doing. And a lot of them had COVID. I lost a lot of them, and people were going through mental challenges. What you were doing was providing you were doing what you normally do in person, you were just doing it virtually. And that's what was needed. Just like if somebody needed insurance, we would sign them up virtually because you could not contact. The only contact I think people had with the outside world was if you had to go to the hospital, grocery stores maybe.
Yes.
I mean, at
that
some point they
Yeah.
shut down. And then if you look at a lot of seniors, they live in, let's take senior housing, for example. There's one person normally in a 3-room apartment. So you have your bedroom, your living room, your kitchen, and then you're in a building where you're not allowed to go to the community room and sit and talk with Susie or whomever. So what you guys provided was just, alleviating some of the pain that everybody was feeling from loneliness. Have either of you experienced COVID? Did you have the dreadful virus by any chance?
No, by the
I
grace
did.
of God.
I had COVID.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I had it, and I'll never forget. It was April. It was tax day, April 15th. I'm like, I should be doing my taxes now, and I had
Wow.
COVID-19. And actually, the virus. I've had colds way worse than the virus. The virus itself was not bad to me. It was the loneliness. I couldn't.
Wow.
Talk to my husband, or I could talk to him on the phone, but there was no human contact. I couldn't touch him. They set up a little tray outside my bedroom, and like they would put my food on it and go into another room, shut the door, and call me. It's the loneliness. So what you did, you have no idea how big that is, and I'm sure it was successful. So if someone wanted to, when is your show on? What times
So our
is it
show,
available, and how do you get on it?
I wanted to mention also that our show is something that we often talk about COVID and the latest research. So we get scientists on and epidemiologists, and they'll talk about it because the sad thing is a lot of people are not educated, or they get miseducated. And at my church, some people thought that the idea of getting a shot was going to somehow give you the mark of the beast, which of course is not biblical, because the mark of the beast is on your right hand or your forehead and is supposed to allow you to buy things. So this has nothing to do with it. So you have to keep encouraging people that way. And the show is at 6 p.m. on Sundays. Goes from 6 to 7.
Saturday.
I'm sorry, Saturdays. Yeah, we don't want you tuning in on Sunday.
Okay, so
The show is from 6 to 7 on Saturdays. Go ahead, John Fritz.
how
Tell
do you
people
tune in? I mean, is there a
So-
website,
So
email?
there are
Okay.
two ways now to tune in. You can go to our Facebook, The Overcomer Hour. We have a Facebook site that is
Okay.
called The Overcomer Hour.
And it's called the Overcomer Hour on
exact
Facebook.
on Facebook.
Okay.
You just have to go to Facebook, go to the search bar,
Sure.
and type The Overcomer Hour.
Okay,
and
so
then the
that's-
show will be live. But the best way for us
Mm-hmm.
is to come to our Zoom meeting. And the reason why we like people to come to our Zoom meeting, is because it allows you to ask questions. If you want to ask a question, you can ask a question. If you want to make a comment about the meeting, you can make a comment if you're on Zoom. If you're on Facebook, the only thing you can do is, watch the show, watch the program. Maybe you can type a few comments, but you can
Okay.
actually speak if you're on Zoom. But on Zoom, if you want to participate, so you have my email right below my image here. My email is my last name, Guerrier, and the initials of my first name, jf@gmail.com. Send me an email and I'll send you a link, because as you know, with Zoom, you have to have a link.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, we also have a link on Facebook. You don't even have to email me. I just remember that. We have a link on Facebook every week. I put a link on our Facebook site, The Overcomer Hour, Facebook. So you can click on that link and access the meeting as well.
Awesome.
Excellent.
I have one question. What if you're not computer savvy? I work with the senior market. I work with people 70, 80. Some people are even close to 90. And is there any way for them to dial in from a phone? Because everybody's not computer savvy.
Yeah, we do
So-
have a couple of phone numbers we said
good.
as well.
Where they could listen to it.
Exactly.
Okay, so there
Or
is.
they can even dial in and have their face appear from their phone if they have a smartphone.
Okay. A lot of them, yeah.
some
Some
people
of
do
them
that.
do. Some of them have a smartphone and don't know how to use it.
Right.
I'm just asking for other alternatives.
No, we occasionally get
okay.
people who come on and we don't see their face and we just have a phone number.
Okay.
And they can still talk if they want to.
Okay. Or ask them if they have a grandchild. You know, they know everything.
Exactly.
Just look them right up.
Exactly. So one thing I want to stress is, I think the way we saw it from the start is the Overcomer Hour is another way to be church, because we feel like, hey, we can come up with something that is more innovative. Because that's the mission of the Overcomer Hour, to be innovative, to love God, to innovation, to innovative ideas, innovative ways, and to serve the community through innovative ways. So it's a different way to be church. So when you come to the Overcomer Hour, you don't feel like you're sitting at a church, but you don't feel like you're out of the church either, because it's a great conversation. Think about it. If you sit in a meeting where, let's say, somebody who works for the pharmaceutical industry comes and talk about trials, what does it mean to have trials when we speak about the COVID vaccines? And she would come and talk to you about it and tell you exactly what trials means and all the process they go through and the reason why you have to be okay to take the vaccine. It makes it very useful for the community.
It does.
We have people like, we have scientists, for example, Daniel's father is a great scientist, well-known scientist. So we have people like him who would come and talk about the science of what their own research or the science, what science means, what the importance of science at a time like this one. We have people, writers. So for example, we had a dean from Yale Divinity School. She came, at that point, she just wrote a book on leadership. And she came to talk about what leadership means at a time like this one. What does it mean to be a leader when you're facing death every day, when the people you're leading are facing death every day? This is a very important thing to have in mind. For example, this coming Saturday, that the person who is coming is a life coach. He will be talking about how to live well. And the Saturday right after that, we have a medical doctor from a major hospital in Florida. And we decided to invite him because Florida is the epicenter of the of the pandemic now. So that person would come and say, hey, this is what's happening in Florida. And this is what I think we should do to have to make sure for the people to have a better life.
Yeah. It sounds like education, it sounds like therapy, and it sounds like church, all in one. And this is what we need. The most important thing is you have people coming on, not talking about their opinion or my opinion or the left or the right. You're just talking about the facts, what is.
Absolutely.
And that's what's important. That's the most important thing. And so I would love to come. You're going to have to invite me on so I can talk about insurance because, what's more important than having health insurance in a COVID era?
Yeah. And
if you go to the doctor, you want to have the right insurance, So,
well, it's interesting because you mentioned mental health. Well, I'm also a psychotherapist.
Okay.
So, I come from that lens as well. And the book I wrote, which is called It's Not All About You, The Secret Joy of Practical Humility, has 70 different humility paths or mental happiness tools that people can tap into. Something as simple as the path of forgiveness, right? Because we all have to realize that forgiving other people is really for ourselves. It's not something that we do for them when we forgive.
Most people don't know how to forgive. I was in my 30s and I didn't know how to forgive, So how do you get to, you say, you should forgive, but what if you don't know how to forgive? And I found myself in that situation. I was upset at a relative for something and it was turning into hate. And it lasted a couple of years, like almost 2 years. And I gave someone a ride to work. And, he happened to be in a church, and I just happened to spill my guts, and he gave me these verses to read, I think in Luke and Hebrew, if you don't forgive man, God won't forgive you, and, things like that. That's when I learned how to forgive. Before that, and I'm in my 30s, I had a son already, I didn't even begin to know how to forgive. What is forgiveness? I mean, I knew what it meant, but I personally didn't know how to do it, and I was being swallowed up by hate. I was thinking about this at night. I wasn't sleeping good, and he told me to read this over and over, and I read it every day, all day, over and over. Every time I thought about, the hateful thoughts I had, and finally, after a long time, I was able to forgive, and at that moment, I felt like light as a feather, like I could fly. And that's when I knew what forgiveness was.
Yeah.
But just to say you have to forgive, most people think that is just saying I'm sorry. But it's a lot deeper than that. So, it's good that you have this. And to be able to explain to people, how do you even start to forgive? Something as simple as that. You know what I mean?
Some of it comes from not judging and just realizing all the reasons why we can't judge. I mean, you can't judge because judgment belongs to God, and only God knows everything about us. Even we don't know everything about ourselves.
Right.
God knows all about us and who we are, and, we shouldn't judge other people because we don't want to be judged. And also, I have this idea that, sometimes we, since we don't really know the person, we don't know their spiritual level. But let's say we did. Let's say we were right. You look at somebody and say, they're a 4. And I'm a 7, right?
Okay.
But the second you do that, then you're becoming less humble, right? Because you're putting yourself above them. Mm-hmm. So you drop down to a 6, right? But the thing is this, they may be overachieving for being a 4. Maybe they're supposed to be a 2, but they're a 4, given their experiences. And you could be a 7, but you could be underachieving because you're supposed to be a 9. Given your experiences. So that's another reason not to judge. And when you talk about forgiveness, the Lord's Prayer, everybody knows the Our Father prayer.
Of course.
Right? And part of the Our Father prayer is forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. But most people don't know is that after the amen at the end, it says, for if you will forgive others their trespasses, God will forgive you yours. But if you don't forgive others, God won't forgive you your trespasses. And that comes right after the Our Father prayer, saying that the most important part is forgiveness, because after all, that's what Jesus Christ came for, so that we could be forgiven for our sins. And when you recognize and you get humble and you realize, you know what, I'm a sinner too. You can look at other people and say, if we had been in their shoes, if we had their DNA, and we had gone through everything they'd gone through, we, in all likelihood, would be behaving the same way as they are.
Understood. So, this is great information. I hope everybody tune in to the Overcomers Hour and get some of this great information. We have about 30 seconds left to the show. It goes really quick when you're talking about something you're really passionate about. So I'll give you the last word.
Thank you. So it's let me say quickly that it's a time for us as a nation and as a world to reflect on where we are in our life, in personal life, but our collective life as well. We have to find new ways to communicate with people. We have to find new ways to be helpful to other people. So let's keep helping each other. And take your vaccine, please, because it's important, because people are dying, so let's help each other. Thank you.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Yeah. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the show. You're welcome back anytime. And that's our show for today. Thank you for tuning in to the David Goodman Reality and Truth Show, and we're on your side.